Okay, so Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness is now out, and throughout this video we're going to be breaking down the ending, explaining the cameos in it, and also giving our full review of the film. Once more, we are back with the Doctor who makes you forget, rather than being the Doctor you forgot about. The film follows him as he goes toe-to-toe with Wanda in the Marvel Magic version of Civil War, and we culminate with him meeting a brand new character that teases an upcoming threat come the end of the film. That's as far as I want to get before we go spoiler heavy, so if you haven't had a chance to check it out, then I highly recommend that you check out now. There will be no memory spells from this point on, but please hit the thumbs up button, and don't forget to subscribe for unforgettable breakdowns. With that out of the way, thanks for clicking this. Now let's get into Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. Okay, so the movie opens with Defender Strange attempting to protect America Chavez from a giant demon that wants to steal her powers. Trying to get to the Book of Ashanti, this seems like the only way to stop whatever it is chasing after them. In case you don't know, the Book of Ashanti in the comics is described as being a text comprised of pure light that has the ability to counter its opposite, the Darkhold. Wanda got her filthy little black fingers on this during WandaVision, and we learn throughout the film that it slowly started corrupting her over time. Now America has similar powers to how she does in the comics, except for that she can't really control them here, which becomes a big character arc that she goes on. When feeling scared, her powers come into effect, and she's able to open up multiversal portals that appear like stars similar to the source material. However, she hasn't quite come to grips with these yet, and the movie actually paints Defender Strange out as quite a bad guy because he tries to kill her in order to strip her powers early on. Much in the same way that the MCU once said he would happily sacrifice Peter and Tony to protect the Time Stone, this guy literally says, "F them kids." However, the demon stabs him, and America manages to escape into the main MCU universe, along with Defender Strange, who dies just after freeing her from its grasp. In the film, we learn that America got scared once by a bee, and she opened a portal which sucked her mothers through. America believed that this killed them, however Strange does say that he thinks they're alive, which is in keeping with the comics. At the Sanctorum, our Doc gets a flash of this opening scene, but he thinks it was all a dream. Now it turns out it's Christine Palmer's wedding day, who moved on in the 5 years that Strange was gone. Guess everyone getting snapped had an effect on the Doctor, because she had no patience, hey? That was alright. Anyway, Strange pretends to be happy, but he's about as Happy Hogan is this month. Cause it's May. Now at the wedding party, New York is attacked by Gargantos, who's come to strip Chavez of her powers. After defeating the beast, Strange ends up learning about America, seeing the body of Defender, and realizing that the monster was brought in by witchcraft, he goes to the only person that he thinks can help. Now Wanda has had a tough old time in the MCU, as not only were her parents killed in front of her, she was also experimented on, watched her brother died, caused civil war, had to kill the love of her life, and then watch him die after Thanos hit rewind. Then she enslaved an entire town, made Vision and some kids, and then again had to watch them die. So hey, probably not in the best of moods. Now we learn in the film that dreams are actually us seeing through the multiverse, and these are our variants. Wanda has one where she's with her kids, which lets her know that there are universes out there in which she can be with them. She dreams of them every night, but her heart breaks in the morning when they're taken away faster than your plans of finally having a good year are after the last 2 pieces of shit. Strange arrives at her new home, and she brings up America by name without Steven telling her, so he realizes something is wrong. She very much refuses to sacrifice the thing that she loves, which juxtaposes Steven, who gave up Christine in order to save the universe. Guy literally said, "F them cats." Now she reveals the Darkhold, which Steven warns can get a Darkhold on people, and it's clear she's corrupted. Wanda gives him a chance to hand over America peacefully, like the War of Independence, and he heads back to Comatage. Not sure if that's historically accurate, but arriving there, Wanda rolls in like a bad fart, and we're introduced to Rintrah. Pulling from the comics, this Minotaur's arc is pretty much halfway through how he's introduced in them, and in the source material, the character was born on the extra-dimensional planet of Raval. Rintrah ended up repairing Strange's cloak of levitation, which had been destroyed in a battle, and after handing it back, he was invited to become the Sorcerer's Apprentice. In the comics, he lived at the Sanctum Sanctorum, which is changed up to Comatage here. Now, if you've been following the channel, you'll know we did a plot leak breakdown that was pretty much 90% of what was in the movie. However, this had some additional scenes that may or may not have been in the original film. Because of how accurate it was, I do think that this is what was originally shot, and according to it, there was a scene in which the MCU's Mordo arrived to kill Wanda. If you cast your mind back to the end of Doctor Strange, he was hunting wizards, but whether it's true or not, either way, it's not in the film. Now it was supposed to open the movie, but I kinda think it might have been cut, so we get more of a twist when it's revealed that she's the villain. After a big battle, Strange and America escape through the multiverse and they arrive in a utopian world, and the pair travel to the Sanctum Sanctorum. Along the way they pass the first big cameo, Bruce Campbell, who appears as someone selling pizza balls. In this world, food is free, but he wants some money for it, and there's also a great reference to the Evil Dead in which Strange enchants his hand. This repeatedly tries to slap him, much like the one from the Evil Dead 2, which was also directed by Sam Raimi. Bruce also appears in the second post-credits scene, which is when it finally stops, and the guy can go back to pizza balls, which I gave your girl a piece of these balls and some nuts. What nuts? These nuts? What? Anyway, after being captured by Mordo, Strange is taken before the Illuminati, who in the comics were a supergroup that secretly controlled things behind the scenes. First teased at on an app on Tony's phone in Iron Man 2, the lineup is highly different here to what's come before. Now the movie isn't specifically based on one graphic novel or comic book run, however it does pull from several books like House of M and even Age of Ultron. In the latter we watched as the world was taken over by the Maniac Machine and Wolverine travelled back in time in order to kill Hank Pym. When returning to the present, he found a completely alien timeline to what he'd known, and there he met Defender Strange and also a twisted Iron Man, the pair of which ended up interrogating him, along with Professor X, who of course appears in the film. It was revealed that the world had changed massively because Hank wasn't there for several of their major battles, which sort of reflects a big plot point we'll get into in just a bit. In this universe, the world now had a new enemy, Morgan Le Fay, who, in case you don't know, is a witch in the comics with similar powers to Wanda. She rolled into their base at the end like Wanda rolls to the Illuminati headquarters, but before we could see the outcome, Wolverine escaped. This also ties to House of M, which featured Wanda creating a fake reality in which she could be with her kids once more, who had been taken away years before by Mephisto. Now this comic also culminated with Strange going to Wanda to try and convince her to destroy the illusion, and she brought it crashing down on herself, which could hint to what's next for the character, especially as she signed a 7-year deal. Now the Illuminati here are made up of Professor X, Captain Carter, the guy from the Slot Slide advert, Black Bolt from the Inhumans, Mordo, Mr. Boombastic, Tell Me Fantastic, and lastly Tom Cruise. Psych! All those people who said I was wrong about this being Maria Rambeau, L. Tom Cruise Iron Man, L. You were quite nice and I appreciate that, but you're gonna have to take this L.
The 8K version of this trailer gives us a much better look at this armor-clad Illuminati member. This, to me, looks very much like Jonathan Majors.
Hey, Paul, how's it going?
It was Maria Rambeau, L.
You son of a bitch. Hey, didn't you say Al Pacino was gonna be in WandaVision?
Now, we don't really learn the ins and outs of their backstory, but we do get the X-Men cartoon theme playing at one point, which leads me to believe this is the same Professor X from the show. He not only has his yellow floating chair, but also his green suit, and we know from the Disney Plus Day event that Marvel are dropping an X-Men 97 cartoon at some point. However, he could just be a variant of the show, and I think this is definitely the case with Captain Carter. Carter is confirmed as being in Season 2 of What If, and the one we met in that show ended up reuniting with Steve, who'd been turned into a capsicle. She drops an "I can do this all day" before being decapitated by her own shield. As for Black Bolt, for the three of you who watch The Inhumans, Anson Mount returns from that, but he's in a far more comic book accurate costume. The character has the tuning fork on his head, and who knows, this could mean that Marvel take another crack at the characters. Now Maria Rambeau is someone whose influence has been felt over the whole MCU since her death, which we learned about in WandaVision. Turns out that after the events of Captain Marvel, that she ended up becoming a founding member of S.W.O.R.D, but she died between the snap and the blip. It's nice that there's a universe in which she still exists so that Monica can be with her mother, but nope, Wanda kills her. Now, it's clear that she took the Tesseract test flight instead of Carol Danvers, and how this happened could have been explained in Captain Marvel. We learned that the pair were both called at the base, but that Carol took a shortcut, so she got there first. What if this didn't happen, and instead Maria got there earlier, so she was the one who ended up riding with Mar-Vell? Carol didn't have any attachments on Earth, so she flew into space with the Skrulls, but potentially Maria remained behind because she had a daughter. Lastly is John Krasinski as Reed Richards. This one fan edit has to stand up and take a bow, as it pretty much got the internet demanding this, until they all turned on it last week and said it was too obvious, cause hey, that's what we do. Now though he gets spaghetti-o'd, I think introducing him this way shows that he's going to be played by John in another universe, and that we'll likely get him as the main one in the MCU. John Watts was signed on to direct Fantastic Four, however last week he stepped away from the project, and with Krasinski's directing chops, I think it would be great to get him behind the camera. And there's also Peyton Reed, who directed the Ant-Man films, and he's been saying for years that he'd love to get involved with a Fantastic Four movie. So if Krasinski thinks it's a bit too much to have on his plate, he might end up staying in the role and just passing it over to him. Now with Krasinski also comes the possibility that Sue Richards will be played by his wife Emily Blunt. It's something else the internet asked for, and hey, you get what you deserve. Now I'm super hyped for it, and I really hope that they go that route because Krasinski completely nails the little time that he has on screen. Against him we get one of the coldest lines I've ever heard in a movie when Wanda asks if his kids have a mother. He says yes, and then she says that's good because they'll have someone to raise them. God damn. Anyway, the fact that he mentions his kids is keeping in with the comics when he and Sue eventually had them. In the MCU, we know that Reed doesn't have his powers yet, as the Fantastic Four probably would have come out by now, and we would have had mention of the Baxter Foundation like what we get here. Now I think when we meet Reed he will be younger, not yet a father, and then we'll develop things from there. Would be awesome to see him eventually come face to face with Wanda, who's killed him in another universe, and I think that would be such a cool way to take things. Now in the film we learn a lot more about the Strange of their Earth who formed the Illuminati. This ties back to the line,
"We should tell him the truth,"
which sets the groundwork for discovering more about the one on their Earth. The truth is that Doctor Strange ended up creating an incursion which has a lot of precedent in the comics. This happens when two different realities collide with one another, and it was a major plot point in the book Secret Wars, which this film further sets up. First teased at during Loki, Secret Wars was a run in which multiple Earths all ended up crashing into one another, and this formed a new planet called Battleworld, which was overseen by Doom. Multiple versions of the same characters all fought for control, and come the end of this conflict, Marvel streamlined the entire thing to create a new continuity that kept some things canon, whilst it discarded the rest. This is how Miles Morales jumped from the Ultimate Universe into the 6161, and it's likely that we'll be getting some form of Secret Wars as the next major event. He Who Remains said at the end of Loki that this would happen, and Kang is probably going to be the next big Thanos level threat we get in the MCU. Now Phase 4 has very much been about duplicate characters from other universes. We of course had several Spider-Men in No Way Home, Loki was filled with a lot of Lokis, and this movie has multiple Doctor Stranges, Wandas, and so on. Don't get me started on Ralph Boner, but it's clear the multiverse is now officially open. Now this again ties into Secret Wars, in which we had multiple versions of the characters appearing. I can definitely see that being this phase's endgame, and who knows, we might get a big battle scene where everyone from over the last 20 years of Marvel movies comes together. Now the incursion wiped out a universe, and behind the scenes the Illuminati put in place their plan to correct things. They killed Thanos to fix it, and also had Black Bolt kill their Strange. However, they told a lie to the public to cover this up, and said that their Strange died fighting Thanos, whereas the one in the MCU of course handed over the Time Stone. We learn that he'd been using the Darkhold to dreamwalk, and even after they told him not to, he kept doing it. This corrupted him because the spell came from the book, and it created the incursion. We learn that if you stay in a universe for too long, that it leaves a footprint, which causes universes to bleed together, and this sets up the post-credit scene that we'll talk about in just a bit. Now for years we've been asking how about the Fantastic Four and X-Men will be brought into the MCU, and I think their inclusion here is gonna be a bit divisive. They go just as quickly as they show up, and yeah, let me know in the comments below if you liked how they were included, or if you feel a bit down about it. Now back in the main universe, the Darkhold is destroyed, and this Wanda has to take things into her own hands. Wanda is desperate to find another Darkhold-esque book, and Wong tells her about Wundagore Mountain, which in the comics was where it was created. This was by Chthon centuries ago, and the pair travel there, namely the Castle Darkhold. There are giant beasts that act as gods there, and these resemble Chthon, though we don't know if he'll turn up eventually. Throwing Wong over the cliff, Wanda ends up exploring the castle at Darkhold as they look for the book, and we catch engravings of the prophesied Scarlet Witch. She also goes to the Illuminati universe in order to grab America. She does this by dreamwalking, much like the Illuminati Strange did, and it allows her to puppet a version of herself in that universe. She wipes the Illuminati out pretty brutally, and it's a super dark scene. Professor X chalks up his third on-screen death after he attempts to enter her mind in order to root out the corruption. He almost gets through to her, but a creepy version of Scarlet Witch arrives and snaps his neck. In the Illuminati chamber, Strange goads Mordo into fighting him by saying that he was jealous of this universe's Strange, and he snaps one of the cuffs on him before he escapes. Along with this universe's Christine Palmer, Strange and America escape into the basement, namely to a door between universes, and he uses the watch she gave him as a gift in the first film to open up the door. Grabbing the Book of Ashanti, things all come to a head, and Wanda manages to capture America, and she pushes Strange and Christine into a destroyed universe. There's also an Oldsmobile reference here, which is a car that Sam Raimi has included in every single film. At the center of this is Sinister Strange, who Strange ends up fighting and killing. We discover that he tapped into the Darkhold, which caused an incursion, and his universe is now in ruins. Strange manages to get back to the 616 MCU universe by dreamwalking into Defender Strange's body, which, as we've mentioned, is a no-no. He masters dark demons that resemble the Deadites, and then he flies to Wundagore Mountain. One climbs up, and though they're beaten by the Scarlet Witch, Strange inspires America, which finally gives her the ability to master her powers. Together, she and Wanda travel through to the Illuminati universe, in which Wanda has her kids, and the Wanda here realizes how in pain she is over losing her children. It seems like Vision doesn't exist in this universe either, which was a bit of a weird one, as I kinda wanted to see him in the film. At one point, Wanda snaps at Billy and Tommy, and after attacking her mother, they're absolutely terrified of her. Realizing that she's been corrupted and consoled by the variant of herself, she finally turns good, and traveling back with America, she makes one final move. Wanda destroys the Darkhold fortress with herself inside of it, and it's left ambiguous whether she's alive or not. However, we do see a red glow from it as it collapses, and learn that she destroyed the Darkhold in every universe. Now, as mentioned earlier, Elizabeth Olsen has signed a brand new deal with Marvel, so expect to see her back. Spoilers there. Now, there is of course the unresolved issue with White Vision, and I do think that he will be the one that pulls her back fully from the brink. Biz is still out there somewhere, and he's technically still the person that she fell in love with. That was of course his body, but he was reprogrammed by Hayward. However, this was overwritten by the Hex 1 in WandaVision. At the end of House of M, we caught Scarlet Witch with her hood up, keeping her head down, and this was somewhat also referenced when she left Westview. I think that she will likely follow the same path as this, and that there'll be some time before she pops back up. However, she will still be alive. Wanda was out of the spotlight for several years in the comics, and they will probably do the same thing here, bringing her back much in the same way that they brought Steve back in Infinity War out of the shadows. Also, back to that Civil War thing, wild how Steve protected Bucky from Tony, and here Strange protects America from Wanda, but I digress. Now, Strange and the Christine variant also say their goodbyes, in what is quite a heartbreaking scene. Before sending her back, he tells her he loves her no matter the universe, and she cries because clearly she feels the same way. However, they can't be together, and he sends her back, which is very sad. However, the movie isn't over, and we learn that America becomes a sorcerer apprentice. The film ends with Strange collapsing in the street as he walks through New York, and a third eye opens on his head, showing that he's corrupt. From here we cut to the post-credit scene to find him once more walking, and he's approached by Clea, played by none other than Charlize Theron. She says that he's caused an incursion and that they need to stop it. She then cuts open reality to the dark dimension, and his third eye opens, showing he may have mastered the dark energies. Now in the comics, Clea was the daughter of a prince that formerly ruled over the dark dimension, and his wife Umar, who was the sister of Dormammu. She was brought up believing that Dormammu was someone to be worshipped, and it is possible that he's the one who threatens her universe. There's a theory going around at the moment that Dormammu could actually be a Strange variant, and you might remember that Tony Todd was originally meant to voice the character in the first movie. However, this was changed up to Benedict Cumberbatch, and I think it would be a great twist if this was also a version of Strange who tapped too heavily into the dark dimension. Now in the comics, Dormammu ordered her to kill Strange, but the pair ended up falling in love, which could hint towards what's happening in the future. If they don't want to go with Dormammu, they could end up going with someone like Wanda, Chthon, or we could just get Kang. Teased at the end of Loki, he would be someone that would definitely be the kind of person threatening realities, and this would set up Secret Wars perfectly. I'd love to see him slowly teased over several movies, and we of course know that he's gonna be in the upcoming Ant-Man film. There are multiple versions of him out there, and we know from He Who Remains that for every good one there is a bad one too. So potentially, we'll get several of them across a vast multiverse in some overarching movies. Now, will Strange give in to the dark energy? Personally, I don't think so. The Darkhold is destroyed, and America points out that he's not like any other versions of the character. There's also the fact that the others couldn't stop the incursions, whereas here it seems like he's going to, or at least going to try. Now, I'd love to hear your thoughts below, and as for my thoughts on the movie, I really enjoyed it, and though I have minor issues with it, it was very well laid out, heart-pounding at points, and a relentless chase. This felt like the comic book version of the Terminator to me, and I think Wanda might be my favourite villain in the MCU now, as she's completely ruthless and unstoppable. The pace is really non-stop, but there are also some issues with that. I do think that there could have been some breathing room during scenes, as it feels like there's a lot on the cutting room floor that would have helped to take the movie from being a 9 up to a 10. Spoiler alert, that's my score. Now, Elizabeth Olsen really knocks it out of the park again, and Wanda is by far one of the most complex and complicated MCU characters that we have right now. On the opposite side of this is Benedict Cumberbatch, who provides a low-key, heartbreaking performance at points. As of now, I think the guy is up there with Robert Downey Jr., Florence Pugh, Hugh Jackman, Patrick Stewart, and the rest with being absolutely perfect casting. The guy can really carry scenes, and he's one of my favourite Marvel characters right now. I love how they also brought horror elements into this movie, and Raimi is adept at integrating this into the story. Guy knows what he's doing as a director, and this is by far one of the best shot Marvel movies out there. There's so many creative choices that they do with the camera, and at points, it almost feels like an indie film. I just wish there was more of it. I feel had they maybe given a good 20 minutes on top of what we had, then this would be absolutely outstanding, but hey, it's still pretty good. Overall, I had a blast with the movie, and it gets, you guessed it, a 9.1 out of 10. Ha! Got you, you sucker. And obviously, I'd love to hear your thoughts, so make sure you comment below and let me know. We are in a competition right now and giving away 3 copies of Spider-Man No Way Home on the 15th of May, and all you have to do to be on the chance of winning is like the video, make sure you subscribe with notifications on, and drop a comment below with your thoughts on the film. We pick the comments at random at the end of the month, and the winners of the last one are on screen right now, so if that's you, then message me on Twitter at HeavySpoilers. If you want something else to watch, then make sure you check out our breakdown of Moon Knight, which will be linked on screen right now. The finale was really had a lot to unpack, so definitely go head over there right after this. Without the way, thanks for sitting through the video. I've been Paul, I'll see you next time. Take care, peace.